looking for Derek Early. Hayward gets it into the post to him. Pushed out by Millsap. Straightens up on the elbow. Drives, spins into traffic. Powers it to the rack and finishes. Ooh, ferocious Favors for two.
Just being Favors. We're ready to tip off. Let's do this.
The NBA tips off today. We'll talk about that in our NBA 5. We'll make some thoughts on who might do what prediction-wise in the NBA. And can the Jazz be the Suns? That's the discussion. We'll talk about it, plus the new roster. It's all coming up today on Tip-Off. Pow! We get to watch real NBA basketball today. Woohoo! Hope you're well. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, way too caffeinated. Still left over from yesterday. Many of you know that I'm a huge coffee fan, and I was over at the coffee house Publix yesterday, which is right on West Temple at about 10th South, and the guy who owns it is a former owner of the Porcupine, where I used to hang out when I was here the first time, and next thing I know, it's 6:30 at night, and I'm back there with him tasting coffees. And I just didn't sleep because I was so caffeinated, and I'm just right back at it. So it must be the season. Hope you're well. This is going to be a fun day. We have 3 games we actually get to watch that count. If you watch Orlando and New Orleans, you're really a diehard. So what do we have coming up on the show? We'll talk about we'll give you the NBA 5. Then we will look at some interesting numbers I found on the Jazz through some StatsView stuff last night, some predictions on the Jazz. As well, that's up there, some other predictions from some interesting sites on the whole rest of the NBA, what the Jazz did roster-wise yesterday, other than just a considerable upgrade. And we'll touch on all of those things coming your direction. Enes Kanter Get to Know will be launched today. Steve Novak was out yesterday and Trevor Booker earlier this week, so hope you got those. I think I'm going to pull back the Derek Favors not run at opening day. I just think there's too much stuff going opening day, and so I'm going to try to sneak it in somewhere, let everybody breathe. I think it'll get lost in the shuffle. And evidently I have some new get-to-knows I have to do here before we're done. So that's what we have planned. Ticket package is still out there. Rockets opening night, New Orleans Pelicans, and LeBron in Cleveland, 3 games in the month, plus a medium pizza from Papa John's for I think like 50-something bucks. Call 801-325-2999. Tell them Tip-Off sent you. That'd be awesome. That'd freak them out. 801-325-2999. Just call them and tell them Tip-Off sent you, even if you don't buy anything. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. All right, and also remember our listener interaction line is 801-200-3738. Questions for Ron Boone. We'll be playing. Where is that in the broadcast? I think it's second quarter every night. We'll do questions for Ron Boone. Maybe it's early third quarter. I'd have to check my sheets. I was building that last night along with everything else. And so have that for you, as well as questions for our players. And we're going to do that usually when they go to the free throw line. So also you can nominate fan of the game. So a lot of stuff there. 801-200-3738. How about we do this?
This is Ian Clark, and you are Locked On Jazz.
Time for our NBA 5, 3 games tonight. Here's what to watch in the Magic versus the Pelicans. I think the biggest thing with the Pelicans all year is, can anyone get to the rim on Ashik and Davis? Can Monty Williams finally build a defense that's good? Because if he does, they're going to be very good. Mavs and the Spurs. It's nice for the NBA to open with our next 2 opponents for the play-by-play announcer. He gets to watch both of them already. Spurs are not at full strength, but the Mavs are kind of the mystery team. A lot of people love what they've done, really feel like they've upgraded everything from their point guard position to Chandler instead of Dallin Barrett to Chandler Parsons at the wing instead of Marion and Vince Carter. And this is a team that pushed the Spurs last year. I mean, people really believe that Dallas might be a top 4 team in the West. I have a hard time going that far with it, but it is being talked about. I'm curious to see how they use Chandler Parsons. Do they just leave him as a spot-up shooter? Do they run a little bit more and relieve some of the pressure on Dirk? Do they let Monte and Chandler play a little 2-man game, which I think you just switch? Curious to see how that all plays, and obviously how Tyson Chandler is defensively where they are. The final one of the night, the Rockets and the Lakers. We just want the Lakers to make a game of it so that the Rockets are tired when they get to Utah, because frankly that's probably more than anything else we want. The Lakers are just awful, but we get to see Kobe try to go Kobe, and I don't know if Kobe's going to try to guard James Harden, but if he's not, it's going to be ugly. I think the real thing also is Byron Scott really not going to have the Lakers shoot threes? There's a great site out there, Nylon Calculus, which does a bunch of number stuff. They have different projections, and they came out with their predictions right now for the East, and this is interesting. They had Cleveland 1, Miami 2, Toronto 3, Washington 4, Atlanta 5, Chicago 6, Indiana 7, and Brooklyn 8. Let me give you a few quick thoughts on the East and our NBA 5 today. I think that in Miami, Bosch and Wade are going to be fine, but all those other players, those Norris Coles, those Mario Chalmers, I suspect are going to get exposed by not being on the floor with LeBron. The gravity that Kevin Pelton's been writing about, that LeBron pulls, is so huge that these guys, Wade and Bosch will be just as good. In fact, Bosch is going to be better. Bosch is going to go back to Toronto and be very, very good. But I think the loss, and you're going to see this same concept in Oklahoma City, the loss of LeBron on the floor for these other guys is going to be astronomical. The team I love in the East is Atlanta. I think Al Horford is terrific. He's a passing big with Millsap's ability to spread. The things you can do with Horford at the elbow, i.e. the way Memphis uses Gasol in an open spread offense, or Teague penetrating off of with a Kyle Korver and Paul Millsap spread, and whomever else they decide to put out there, is whether it's Pero, they wouldn't have Antic, who would be there, whatever their small forward addition would be in the various lineups, Damari Carroll, whoever they're going to use. I really like Atlanta a lot this year. I even like their bench a little bit. I think that's the surprise team in the Eastern Conference, second year in Budenholzer's system, and if Budenholzer's system's anything like Quinn's, this is very difficult to pick up and going to take some time. And I do think the one thing I would kind of look at these numbers and agree with is I feel like there's just a little too much love on Chicago right now. I think there's so many ifs. If Derrick Rose comes back correctly, if the rookies McDermott and Mirotic are able to play, which everyone says, yeah, they'll be. But these are ifs. If Joakim Noah's knee holds up, if Tom Thibodeau actually can coach an offense, I know they've been there. They've been 60 wins before, but I'm not as sold on the Chicago. I think this is going to be a Cleveland runaway in the Eastern Conference. And the other one that I will be very curious to watch is Charlotte. I'm a believer that if you have a player that uses a possession of below the league average as your primary guy, that there's a certain win limit you can get to. Kevin Pelton's kind of moved me a little bit on this concept, and the concept is I just don't believe you can win at all with a high-level possession unit who's below the league average, and that's Al Jefferson still. As much as everyone loved what Al Jefferson did last year, he still did the same thing he's always done. He shot 50% from the field and only used 7.5% of his possessions to go to the free throw line, and he came out as slightly below league average. I mean, right on league average, but slightly below. And if you're using 22 possessions a night below the league average, you can't be that good. And Kemba Walker uses 20 possessions a night below the league average. Sure, Lance Stevenson's going to be there, and he's exciting and all of this, and he's going to add in and move some of those possessions. But frankly, I think there's a real limit to what you can do as a franchise if that's the case. And Lance Stevenson is only moderately above average. When you look at those players, and actually, I'll do it in the backside of this outside of the NBA 5. We'll look at those inefficient players on today's show. Kevin Pelton will argue to me that there's a large value of usage. And there probably is something, and Pelton's smarter than I am. But I just don't believe you can win. I think that the Jazz went as far as you possibly can go with your primary possession guy being below league average in possessions, and I think that's the same case for where Charlotte is. I think they'll be disappointing this year. Over in the West, the numbers have the Clippers as number one. Do we really believe the Clippers are about to be the number one seed in the conference? The other interesting one is, what are the Warriors going to do? They were very good defensively last year, but the one thing you got to remember about the Warriors under Mark Jackson is somehow, some way, and I'm not, as you guys all know, not a big believer in just banging on the coach and deciding the coach is terrible and that everything's wrong with the coach. But if you take a second and look at the Warriors last year, they were a good defensive team and a bad offensive team. How is that really possible that a team with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, David Lee, a great conductor in Andre Iguodala, and an efficient Andrew Bogut were a bad offensive team? Steve Kerr is doing two things differently than Mark Jackson ever did. One, he's practicing, which Mark Jackson didn't do, frankly, from everything I've told. And two, they're moving the basketball. The Warriors last year were the 12th ranked offensive team in the NBA. What happens if Mark Jackson if Steve Kerr moves the Warriors into the top 10 offensive or top 5 offensive teams in the NBA, and they still hold to their third, fourth, or fifth defensive premise? And they have Ron Adams, one of the great defensive coaches. They are suddenly the number 1 or 2 team in the Western Conference. Keep an eye on that. Oklahoma City, I think, is going to really struggle without Durant badly. I suspect they're going to be the 4th seed, if not the 5th seed. So that's open. That Clippers, Warriors, Spurs world is open up top on this thing. And then the question is Houston with 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA going to be able to make a jump? Is Memphis with Marc Gasol healthy for the entire year going to make that jump? Is Dallas that team? And is anyone going to drop out? The only team that seems to me that could drop out of the Western Conference is Portland. It's if New Orleans gets in there in some capacity and Portland just can't stay healthy as they did a year ago with what was one of the great historical runs of healthiness when they started, I believe, the first 53 games with the same starting lineup, something that has simply not been replicated in the NBA more than 2 or 3 times ever in the history of the game. So there you go. That is your NBA 5.
Hi, this is Rodney Hood. I want to hear from you. Call 801-200-3738 and ask me a question that is 801-200-3738 to ask me a question.
Uh-oh, I have a Playboy model on the bottom of, oh no, not a model, just a Playboy star, I guess, on the bottom of the tip-off. I don't know the story. Someone's going to have to tell me the story, but evidently our good friend Angie on the bottom of our tip-off got highlighted in Playboy.com for some NBA thing. I've missed it. I didn't go to Playboy.com last night to check it out. Sorry. So anyway, congratulations to Angie. I just saw her pop in the bottom of the, someone will have to give me the story. Maybe Angie will stop by tomorrow night after the game and give me the story on what that is. So I just now feel flattered that a celebrity of that nature will check in, to the tip-off. All right, let's get it. Here's one thing that's become really abundantly clear to me at practice, and I'll get to the roster. We're really at the beginning stages. I know that all of us want this immediate gratification. We want to go, and the preseason. But I'm watching what Quinn's trying to do at practice, and he's really trying to get these guys to understand conceptually what the offense is supposed to do. Quinn and I talked about this the other day on our coaches show. We're not going to run a system where one goes here and sets a pick, and so 2 goes here, and it's all structured. It's all read-based and feel-based, and they're doing drills at practice, where they're playing 3 guys in a station at a time, and assistant coach Brad Jones will yell, trailing, and then the guys have chasing, and the guys have to figure out how to run it, switching, and they have to make their move. And you can just see it's an eye-opening that it's one thing when you're doing it in practice and you're missing every now and then in practice, and then the coaches have to correct it or try to work on things. When you're in the game and the lights are on and the clock is running and the opponents are coming at you, you're not going to do that as well very often correctly, and we're making mistakes still in practice because it's so new. So the execution's going to struggle. There really are going to be some. I know everybody wants to believe otherwise, but there's going to be some really tough nights coming up here, particularly on the offensive end. Quinn's building a long-term project, and he's been very clear about this. Steve Clifford in Charlotte kind of took the opposite approach defensively. We're going to just institute 1 or 2 things, do those well, do nothing else. We'll have no specialty defenses in. We're going to have none of our counters in, and we're just going to do this well. And he even said to us early in the year last year, we're going to get beat by stars. Well, sure enough, Durant dropped 50, Carmelo dropped 50. Everybody did against Charlotte last year. Quinn's kind of doing the opposite. I'm gonna put this whole thing in as the year goes on, and that I think is what's going to be difficult for this team. And I apologize, guys. I get the access to practice. I think in the long run it really helps you. I'm sure it's very frustrating when I won't share a specific, but I'm just watching. He's trying to get a whole brand new communication system in where if he says, 2, 4, elbow, slot, they know, pop, right? Like this all means something, and they've got to learn it. But it's not the key on that. Like if they're running a 2, 4, elbow, slot, pop, is not. And I'm not sure that's a play. I might have just doubled up on a slot and elbow. Might not be able to be corresponding. But even if that's the play, it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone's movement is defined on that play other than maybe the beginning of the play and where it's generated from. The only thing that really tells the guys is who's got the ball, who's probably setting the initial pick, and where it's generating from. But from there, everything else is read-based, and that's going to really take some time. And, when guys get overwhelmed by the moment, or you've got Lance Stevenson up in on you, or Trevor Ariza is denying your every movement. it's hard. This is really asking guys to play smart basketball. Gordon is doing a very good job with it. Trey is doing a very good job with it. Dante, actually, to his credit, is a really, really smart basketball player. I think that's what's going to get him through the year. And so those, and then you're asking two of the guys, frankly, to do it in a second language. I think we forget sometimes that the ask on Ennis and Rudy is bigger. You're asking them to get all of it in a second language. They spend a lot of time speaking English, and they both have actually said they start to dream in English as the season goes on. But it's still a difficult task we're asking. So we're really at the beginning stages. And even as I watch them defensively start to put in instead of doing the Clifford approach, doing things, hey, if James Harden is going to do this, so we're going to put in specific different things to deal with a player like James Harden. Well, now there's another level of process. And I think the first, I don't know how many times, 10, 15, 20 times we do this, it's going to be tough. So just understand that as the season's going on, that this is a very complicated system. This is it's a really read-based system, and an understanding of each other and playing as a group. And you've got young players trying to do this in a different way than they've ever done it before. Actually, I thought the guy in Grantland did a good job of pointing out that that's really the biggest difference in our offense is there's a flow to it that's free-flowing rather than the static kind of set play that we've had in some of the past. 2 roster moves yesterday. Really, I think they might all be together. So we cut Carrick Felix and we picked up Jordan Hamilton. That's a pretty big upgrade. Carrick Felix just never got going. He didn't get going in the open gym, and then he had the shoulder injury, and they never got going again. And frankly, you saw it in the preseason games. He was pretty awful, turning the ball over. Didn't have a great handle. Jordan Hamilton's not the greatest player ever, but he comes with some experience, former first-round draft pick. And it's a bummer because I really liked Carrick Felix, and nice kid and good story, and really I thought very bright, has a master's degree. But Hamilton comes with just a little bit higher level of basketball, I think, for the Jazz. He's played 100-plus games. He played on the Nuggets. He played in major rotations. He was a stud at Texas. He was an All-American in college, I think third team. Arguably, he could have been the second-best offensive player of the year that Jimmer was tearing up the collegiate world. He was the number 8 prospect nationally by ESPNU following his senior year. So I mean, this is a basketball player. He just hasn't. He's had a hard time going through what a lot of guys do, which is, what's my role in this league? How do I fit in? He's become an almost exclusive three-point shooter. Last year, 129 of his 254 shots were threes. But he's gone over 15 points 11 times. He hit 48% on his corner threes last year. He's a very poor mid-range shooter, but he's kind of figured out that corner three. The tops were a problem for him last year. He bounced around from Denver to Houston last year, then didn't make Toronto, and I think if you look at Toronto's roster, it's pretty big, pretty busy there. So this is an upgrade, and I think this is a rotation player. Another 24-year-old former first-round draft pick. I think Jordan Hamilton ends up in our rotation as a wing with Rodney Hood, Gordon Hayward, Alec Burks, and I'm forgetting someone. But I think he'll take Ian Clark's shooting guard minutes, because Ian Clark, is, as well as he's played, is just too small to play the shooting guard in the NBA. He's a good defender, and he battles, and I think we'll see him for a while. But if that position is there at 6'3", 175, if you're playing us, it might not seem like a lot, but even just playing us, you're matching up on Alec, right? And Alec's 6'6". That's just a big deal. And you can see it visually when you watch Ian. As hard as he's working and everything else he's doing, he's just a bit small for that position. So Ian kind of slides into that third guard to help out Dante, and I think that position's there for the taking for Jordan Hamilton if he grasps the system. And we're going to find out, can he play smart? Can he do exactly what we were just talking about or not? Joe Ingles is an interesting player. He's 27 years old. He's been through a lot. 2006 through 2009, he was a pro in Australia. He actually started with this great splash. He had 29, most ever by a first-time player ever in Australian Pro League. He then moves and plays in the high-level European League. His second year, he goes to FC Barcelona. He averages just 6 points, 2 rebounds. And then he ends up playing at Maccabi Tel Aviv last year with the EuroLeague champion head coach Dave Blatt, who's in Cleveland. We'll see. He averages 15 points a game in the Olympics. We'll see. Athletically, I think there's a real concern from just reading stuff about him. Frankly, I don't know. I haven't watched him a lot. I know very little about him. Dave Blatt was quoted when they got him. He's a super versatile player who can play several positions, handle the ball, score from three-point range. He's an expert at the pick and roll, exceptional ability to drive to the basket thanks to long strides and finishing capability. He's excellent for the Australian national team. Last Olympics, said Blatt, when he played the best players in the world. Ingles is an impressive player who's yet to reach his peak. I'm sure he'll blossom with us in Maccabi. So he did. He had a good year there. He's an upgrade on Brock Modem. He's a better player than Brock Modem because he's versatile. He can do more things. He probably can play a small stretch four, only 6'8", 220. That's a little small. He can probably play the 3, the 2, and he can handle a little bit more. And, there is an element here where we have a young 19-year-old traveling across the country for a first time with a few $1 million who is a great kid, but having his childhood idol cannot hurt. Dante and Joe were roommates on the Australian national team. I think Joe can help us on the basketball floor. I think Jordan Hamilton is probably is in more. If I had to make a guess, I could be totally dead wrong. If I had to make a guess on which one I think would get rotation minutes first, I think Jordan Hamilton has a better chance than anyone else. And it's a real upgrade on Carrick Felix. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it's an upgrade. Carrick just never was able to click in. And Ingles is an upgrade on Brock, so that's why you make roster moves. You get better on both those two players. Ingles is better because of versatility. But I do think that his connection to Dante matters. I think it would be ignorant to say otherwise. Nylon Calculus projects the Jazz to 29 wins. So there we're getting into more realistic kind of numbers, it seems. There's a lot of questions for the Phoenix Suns. Let me give you why we could be the Phoenix Suns and have this big breakout. The reason one is because defensively we can get so much better. Right? We were 30th in the league last year. We can get so much better defensively, we can make a jump. The second thing is, this is the thing I think everybody forgot last year was taking place, and I talked about it a lot. I don't know if you recall. And this was really the biggest difference last year, I kept saying, between Phoenix and Utah, was that all of the guys on Phoenix, when you looked at Phoenix last year, that were having these, 8 guys had their breakout year in just this incredible year, and Jeff did an amazing job. But almost all of the guys on that team were doing something they had done before. So in other words, Goran Dragic was their starting point guard. He had been a starting point guard the year prior. P.J. Tucker was their starting small forward. He had started before. JL Green was their starting shooting guard for 48 of the games. He had started before. Channing Frye had been a long-time starter before. Miles Plumlee was not. Miles Plumlee was a real find for them in the center position. Markieff Morris and Marcus Morris were coming off the bench. They'd done that before. Bledsoe was coming off the bench. He had done that before. So when you looked at their top 8, 9, 10 players last year, they all had fulfilled that role before. And if you really look at the other thing about them last year is, and this is why we're not the Suns, they didn't play young players. They played Dragic 26, Tucker 27, Green 27, Dragic 28, Tucker 28, Green 28, Frye 30, Morris 24, Plumlee 25, Morris 24, obviously, Bledsoe 24. It was not a particularly young team. So the one thing, so the part of the reason here is, yes, we can do it because of defense, and yes, we can do it because actually this year our guys, Trey has started a year before. Alec hasn't has started, but I think he's been in the role. I don't think it's a quantum step for him, but it's a little bit of a step. I think there. Gordon started. Derek has started before. Ennis, this is a little bit of a change. And so Trevor Booker has played this role before. Some of those guys, Rudy is going to expand a little bit. That's where I say, yes, we have a chance we can be the Phoenix Suns. Here's why we can't be the Phoenix Suns. On the flip side, they didn't play any young guys. Archie Goodwin played 533 minutes last year. Alex Len, their big center, played 362. They didn't play a guy under the age of 24 years old last year. They weren't this incredibly young team that parallels exactly what we're doing. We're far younger than what Phoenix was a year ago. We have where we're going to rely on, time will tell, but my guess is we're going to rely somewhere in our minutes played. If you count, I count Rudy Gobert as a first-time ever rotation player. I think we would all agree with that, right? And then you have Dante Exum and you have Rodney Hood. We're going to be relying on somewhere between, let's go at minimum 60 minutes of our game a night from those players. That's 25% of the minutes on our floor are going to be done by guys who've never been in that rotation before, and a bunch of guys, some who are taking a new position than they've played before. So I think you've got to be a little. That's where I don't think we can do it. The other one is, frankly, we don't have Channing Frye, and they don't either, and it's going to be a problem for him this year. Channing Frye is a matchup game changer, and we don't have a matchup game changer in any way to what we're doing. I mean, it's what we're trying to create with Ennis. It's a little bit what we're trying to, but we don't have that player. Frye spread the floor, changed everything Phoenix does when he was on the floor, and you can see the difference when he was on the floor and he wasn't. And then we have a real depth issue. When you look at Phoenix's team last year, they had very few injuries, but when they did have injuries, they had the capability of, if you just kind of looked around at that roster, take a second, let me pull it back up. Where do we go? Dragic missed 6 games. Bledsoe's that replacement. They got 81 out of Tucker, 82 out of Green, 82 out of Frye, 81 out of Morris, 80 out of Plumlee, 82 out of Marcus Morris. So as much, Bledsoe got hurt, they had Dragic. They got, out of their 7 rotation players, they missed a combined 2, 3, 4, 10 games out of their top, and Bledsoe being their 8th. So out of 7 of their, excluding Bledsoe, they missed 10 games combined out of all those players. Okay? Those are the reasons why I don't see us being the Phoenix Suns. We don't have that same vibe on it. All right, few notes. I did my final Utah Jazz prep. Part of me almost wants to share this whole element of what I have in front of me during a game. It's a 13-page Word document. I found something I thought was, few notes I thought were interesting. I think you know this one, but Rudy Gobert was, team shot 41% at the rim last year with Rudy Gobert there, which is the same as Roy Hibbert and Larry Sanders. He could be game-changing. I thought this was interesting. I think I'd used this earlier for you. Hayward had the 3rd most front court touches of a non-point guard last year. Okay, so incredible burden on Gordon last year that will change who he is. Gordon last year on pull-ups, off the dribble, shot 40%, on catch and shoot, shot 35%. That catch and shoot number's got to go way up. Trey Burke was about 35, 36% of. Derek Favors last year only had 5 elbow touches a game. That will change dramatically. I thought this was surprising. I shared this with you the other day. Alec Burks, 4th best points per drive in the NBA. However, this was really surprising to me and a little daunting. Where is it? Where's my note on this? Oh, I didn't put this note in my notes because I don't want to use it in the game. You just found out. Let me find it. I don't want it's a negative note, so I use it here, share it with you, and I would never use it in the game. Last year, worst effective field goal percentage on pull-up shooters. Okay, off the dribble, outside 10 feet. Jeff Green was the worst in the NBA at 33%, and Alec Burks was the 2nd worst of the guys who took the top 100 attempts. So 100 most frequent pull-up shooters. Alec Burks was the 2nd worst shooter off the dribble outside 10 feet in the NBA last year. It's an interesting year for him. It's really both Ennis and Alec. It's a fascinating year. I still am not sure on either of them. We should be more sure on them. There's no question on that. That's a disappointing aspect of the last few years. And I don't know if that's because of the players. I guess we'll find out, right? If it was the system, it was the roster situation, if it was the maturity of the players, I have no idea why. But that's something that I wish we had more of. All right, let's just do a quick little thing here. Let's screen share one thing with you. We're pretty long into this, but since I brought this up, and I talked to a college class yesterday, so maybe I have 3 new viewers that I've never had before, and I got to impress them today. So let me just pump this up. Pump! Uh-oh, Hans and Franz. By the way, Snark Tank / Angie Treasure, did you get credit for all of the good calls ideas you give me? You gave me one earlier this year. I can't remember it. All right, let's take a quick second and screenshot this right here. So this is my system of evaluating players. And let's play here for a second. Let's take, this is sorted now by, I believe, by possession usage. So these are the players who use the most possessions, this column right here, every night in the NBA. This right here tells you whether or not a player uses a possession above or below the league average. This is the cringe or grin, an offensive rating efficiency, and this just takes you down simply to the league average of possessions. And I should make sure that my league average numbers look right. They do. You scan all the way down to the bottom, there should be, yep, this is, yep, so these look all right. And you will see there's a few exceptions to the rule, but let's play through it. And then the other thing that happens here, this is the Locke offensive rating, and if you're not used to the Locke offensive rating, the way the Locke offensive rating works is that 10, oh, that's not going to work. 10 is league average, 20 is a high level starter, 30 is elite, and anything over 40 is exceptional. And then 2 guys hit 50 last year, Kevin Durant and LeBron James, and that's an astronomical season. So here are the highest possession users, and look at this. So here's actually, if all things, LaMarcus Aldridge is below the league average. He changed a little bit when you come over here to points by possession because he doesn't turn the ball over at all. But it's largely that he doesn't go to the free throw line. He doesn't turn it over at all. He's kind of Al Jefferson in that sense. He doesn't turn it over. And so that covers, you kind of have to double check. You take the first thing is just, this is simply their shooting. And then the next, and their use of possessions with free throws. And then you got to check their turnovers, because if their turnovers are low, then they can bring it back. And so Aldridge hits right at the league average. Here's the interesting ones to me. Russell Westbrook, because of his turnovers, but his cringing grin is just a little bit above league average. They're now going to rely on him even heavier. DeMar DeRozan, for all the talk of him as a star, 23 possessions a night, it's slightly below the league average. Al Jefferson, you come back over to Al, by the way, and the fact that he simply doesn't turn it over gets him back above the league average a little bit here. Westbrook, because he turns it over so much, but that you understand that with a point guard. Kyrie Irving, for all the talk. And they didn't ever win, right? They had a really hard time winning it. Who are the guys, Kyle Lowry is able to cover up a little bit for DeMar DeRozan on some nights. Al Jefferson, we'll see what happens there. John Wall with Washington, for all the high hopes, is below the league average. Derrick Rose was terrible last year. Monte Williams, for all the talk of how great he was, the lack of three-point shooting, he did get to the line. Michael Carter-Williams was dreadfully awful for a player using 20 possessions. Here's Josh Smith, just an awful year using 20-plus possessions. Very hard to win. And if you see on LaMarcus Aldridge, here's Damian Lillard's very key. Kemba Walker, with Charlotte, the fact Charlotte won anything offensively. Where did they finish offensively last year? Well, 24th. Okay, well, that's why. Yeah, they were, so they somehow found a way to win games purely defensively. Let me check and make sure it's still there. Okay. Brandon Wright, Thaddeus Young. Here's Dragic being fabulous, Anthony Davis being fabulous, Dirk Nowitzki being fabulous, Kobe will kill them. Zach Randolph in Memphis is interesting. This is a big slide from last year and something they have to keep an eye on. Dwayne Wade was terrific. Ty Lawson, Pau Gasol. Again, this is the Chicago thing. Like, who is he now? And we all love him so much, but what are the 2 primary possession users we just saw out of Chicago are going to be Derrick Rose and Pau Gasol, and they're both below league average. Derrick Rose has got to show, he only played 10 games last year, but see who he is in this process. So those are the guys. Brandon Jennings in Detroit with Josh Smith. It's why they were dreadful. And this one stuns me. I love Bradley Beal. But this is a disconcerting number on Bradley Beal that he only goes to the free throw line 6% of the time. Watch that and see if it moves upwards this year. Finally, I was just going to take this to 18 possessions. Here's Kyle Lowry above the league average. Here's Gordon below the league average last year at 18 possessions, which has got to get up. And there's Jeff Green, who we mentioned earlier. Boston, not a good offensive team. So it's very difficult if you have a player that's below league average as your primary possession user, one of your primary possession users, to be a good offensive team. Portland found a way last year. All right, we are probably at the 35-minute mark. There are questions. Let's quickly run through a bunch. Has Quinn talked to the team about the realities of the brutal November schedule? Is there any way to guard against frustration building this team gets off to a 5-12 start? If they get off to a 5-12 start, they're going to be awesome. How do we win in 5 games? Houston opening night, we win. At Dallas, no. Phoenix at home, maybe. At Clippers, no. Cleveland home, unlikely. What do I have for wins? I have 1, 2. Home against Dallas. At Detroit. Back-to-back at Indiana. George Hill will be out. We might get that one. That's 3. At Atlanta. At New York. Maybe. Doubt it. At Toronto on the back 5th game of road trip. Home against Oklahoma City, maybe. At Golden State, unlikely. Home against New Orleans and Chicago, maybe we get one of those. All right, there's our 5, because at Oklahoma City and then home against the Clippers. That's our 5. That's our max. 5-12 would be our max. I'm sure Quinn's discussed that, and I think that's a big issue. Early in the offseason, there were a lot of silly comparisons to Haywards and Parsons. Obviously, Hayward is a different player than Leonard, but would you rank Leonard 24, 23 spots higher than Hayward as ESPN did? I think if Gordon Hayward was on the San Antonio Spurs, he would be ranked 24th. Though Kawhi Leonard's a better defensive player than Hayward will ever be, and he's been a better shooter than Hayward's been. So in fairness, but a lot of that has to do with the players he's playing around. So I'm with you. Ginger, how are you? By the way, I'm glad you had a good time on Armstrong. I think you emailed me or sent that to me a long time ago. It's a great trip. If Exum was not on the Jazz, do you think you would have picked up Ingles, or is he here more as Exum's mentor? I don't know the answer to that, and I'm very hesitant to characterize Joe Ingles solely as a babysitter to Dante Exum because I think it's a great discredit to what he's done in his career. He's really pretty good. And he's done big things. He's won a EuroLeague championship. He's the best player on the Australian team. If I just isolate him, does he or Brock Modem fit our team better, which is a little bit of what that decision was, right? Jordan Hamilton decision against Carrick Felix. Jordan Hamilton's better, and Joe Ingles versus Brock Modem. And I had said, I think, to some people, and I don't know if I said on the air, when we played the Clippers, I had said, they're going to cut him. I wouldn't be surprised if we picked him up. I thought to myself, he's better than our 15th guys. So I think he legitimately deserves to be here, and we got to be very careful to not discredit that. But I also think that it can't hurt, right? And Dante's the franchise, or key piece to the future of the franchise. Casey Greer just got League Pass. Nice work. Broadband or the whole thing? I have the broadband version. They gave it to me for free though. Who are the 5 teams you'd want to watch the most this year? I'd watch Dallas because I don't know how much longer Dirk's going to be great, and watching Kobe in this stage reminds me of how much you should have watched him when he was great. So I would watch them. I love Atlanta. Very similar system what we're running. I think you can learn a lot about what we're doing. I'm giving you, trying to give you a little bit obscure teams too. Obviously you're going to watch Cleveland, right? Golden State with Steve Kerr and Steph Curry could be pretty awesome. I have a man crush on Aaron Gordon, so I might end up watching Orlando. 5 teams. So what have I given you? I've given you Atlanta. I've given you Dallas, Golden State. I'm pretty curious to watch Andrew Wiggins, so I might have Minnesota on that list for at least a while. Boy, the Clippers are pretty awesome to watch. They're on national television so much it's hard to put them as a league pass team. So I'm looking at our schedule right now, trying to see if there's another team out there that spurs something that I would want to watch. Can I go clip? I think New Orleans with Anthony Davis and Amir Ashik, and whether or not that works in Anthony Davis. So that would be close to my 5. Good question. With Ingles and Hamilton coming in without preseason combined with a complicated play calling, how long do you think it'll take for them to catch up? A lot, and they'll probably be there today. And then I was looking at this. So we practice today. We play tomorrow. We play Thursday. I would be surprised if we practice Friday, getting in at 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe Quinn will have them flush through and just do film. So Saturday we play. Sunday's kind of an unofficial off day, and there is a league rule of how many times you have to on how many times you have to give a guy days off. And we actually, I'd be surprised if we practice. No, we're not going to practice Sunday because we fly Sunday. Wow, our schedule's brutal. And then, shoot-arounds, Quinn's pretty detailed. Our shoot-arounds are long and detailed, so maybe that's it. Tuesday, I don't know when we practice again, because here's the schedule. This is the life of the NBA if you're interested. So Wednesday we play, Thursday we play in Dallas, but we get in at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to Dallas. We have a bunch of wrong way. We come back Friday. I think we'll practice Friday to some extent, even though we got in that late, because Saturday we play. Sunday we're not practicing because we fly. Monday we're in LA. We play. We get back from LA at 2:33 because of the wrong way flight. So you could practice to get ready for LeBron on Wednesday. Thursday's a practice day, November 6th. Friday we play Dallas. Saturday we fly early, like 10 a.m. to Detroit. You don't need it that specifically, but yeah, we fly at noon. You're not practicing that day. Sunday you're playing Detroit. Monday you're playing Indiana. Tuesday you're in Atlanta. I'm sure we'll go practice to some extent, but you've just played 3 games in 4 nights in practice. We get a day off. We play Wednesday, Thursday. We're in New York. I'm sure you'll do something. Play Friday, Saturday. Off Sunday when you come back from that trip. Practice Monday. We got 2 practice days between now and November 18th. We'll probably practice Wednesday the 19th. We fly the 20th. I mean, it's just so yeah. There's like 3 practices between now and there. It's kind of brutal. Can I lay off some of the coffee as I need tip-off for another 30 years? Coffee's good for me. What are you talking about? Might cause some of these wrinkles. Who knows? All right, I got to get done with this. I got too much stuff here in a second. There's a ton of questions. So I'm going for another 2 minutes and 30 seconds. We're calling it at 45 minutes. Before last season started, you said you're making a bold prediction that Gordon would be the highest jump of all players in the top 100. He was tied for second with DeMar DeRozan moving up 43 spots. Lowry was first. That's really? Michael Perry, that's cool. That's really interesting. All right, I'll look through the top 100 players of NBA ranked tonight or tomorrow or sometime, and I'll do that. That's great. Michael, thank you very much. I know what I'm talking about. That was cool. That makes me smile. Should I just end there? Oh, that's cool. Thanks, Michael. From Peter. With the evident focus on transition D, is it an element of practice that one big usually favors or guards hustle back with the others canter, stay, and feeds the offense to glass? It's that. It also has to do with the way they're running back. They have a very specific way they run back. They have a very specific way of where they run back to on the floor. They have a very specific way of where they meet the ball carrier and how they meet the ball carrier. They have a very specific way of what they're trying to force the other team to do if they're going to score in transition against them, in contrast to what most teams do. So it's very detailed through the approach, and I can't get more specific than that or I'll get kicked out of practice. This is fun. You guys are great today. Off topic, random fun question. I remember you saying you're a fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Who's not? It is that and Parks and Rec are the best. Is there a Captain Holt or Peralta on the team? Also, you think there's any chance that the Jazz acquire a bad contract with a pick from someone else this year? I think the 15th spot. Well, Toure Murray is only who I view Toure Murray now as the 15th spot, and he's only guaranteed through December. So yes, I do think there's a chance that we could do that at some point along the way. All right, is there a Captain Holt or a Peralta on the team? I love it. If people don't know Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you should watch it. Go get Hulu and watch all of it. Captain Holt's the no-nonsense, hysterical. Nobody's Captain Holt. Captain Holt's awesome. Peralta. is Andy Samberg. I don't have that for you. Those guys are unique. Those are great characters. Michael sure does an incredible job writing. All right, Steve, great question. Sorry, everybody. I see that there's 20 other questions. I don't have. I'm sorry. I have to run. Thank you. Congratulations to our new celebrity in town, the Playboy bunny herself, Angie Treasure. On that note, tickets available at UtahJazz.com tomorrow night at the arena. Jazz basketball tomorrow. We'll have our opening day. We'll talk about real games that took place. See ya.